Welcome everyone to the Highly Relevant Podcast. My name is Jack Rico and thank you for downloading episode 18. There's a lot to cover this week. I break down the Oscar nominations with New York One film critic Neil Rosen. We'll talk snubs, surprises, and go over the top categories. Also, I'll tackle the lack of visibility of Latinos in Hollywood films with my good friend Tara McNamara. Why are we so invisible when we should be at the forefront of film and pop culture? And finally, I discuss Trump, the wall, our New Mexico feud, and sanctuary cities. Will cities abide by the new immigrant proposals? Miami already has, and that is bad news for Latinos. But first, we'll begin with some Oscar talk. The 2017 Oscar nominations came out this week, and La La Land scored an unbelievable 14 Oscar nominations. That's tying a record. My good friend Neil Rosen from New York One helps me make sense of the hits and misses of the principal categories. How long have you been in New York One, Neil?
Next month, 24 years.
Get out of here.
Isn't that something?
Holy... You know what? I never realized you were there that long.
I was 6 years old when I started.
And now you're 30.
I was reviewing Disney films.
Hey, seriously, how did... It's rare to hear anyone say that they've been at a job for 24 years, especially a film critic.
Yeah, you don't even see film critics today, let alone that. I mean, when I was a kid, literally, every channel in New York had a film critic. Channel 2 had Dennis Cunningham and Joel Siegel, and who later went to Channel 7. Then you had Channel 4 was...
Jeffrey Lyons.
Yeah, but before that you had a woman by the name of Katie Kelly. And then Channel 5 had Stuart Klein, and then Channel 7 had Joel Siegel. We moved over there. And then Channel 9 had Pat Collins. And Channel 11, I forgot the woman's name, but there was a blonde woman that was... Channel 9 had Pia Lindstrom. So Pia Lindstrom was on Channel 4 for a while. There was tons of critics. Channel 9 had Pat Collins. Channel 11 had...
And not to mention the networks. The Today Show had...
Gene Shalit.
Right.
Yeah.
And then obviously you had Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel.
Yeah, there were a ton of movie critics on television. And now there are not many. So I guess I'm lucky.
So you had a chance to see the Oscar nominations this year. I was on your podcast. We were talking, we kind of dedicated the whole show to the Oscar nominations. Let me begin with talking a little bit about your snubs and surprises. What were some of the big key takeaways that you felt like it was out of context, just didn't make any sense to you?
Well, the first thing right off the bat that didn't make any sense to me was the way the Oscar nominations were presented by
Yes.
ABC and the Motion Picture Academy of Arts and Sciences, or what. I mean, I've been doing this for years, and they usually stand up in a room at 5 a.m. LA time with a bunch of press there and publicists, and they get the president of the Academy and some past Oscar winner. Like, here's, Julianne Moore to read it, and it's a laundry list, and they read it off, and they do all the major categories first, and all the news agencies and stations can get it. And then if you want to hang out, they'll give you all the, smaller categories. But this year, they did like a show, a produced show, and if you're picking it up live on television, which is what we were doing at New York One, it was ridiculous. I mean, it was like, different stars talking about, what the Academy Awards means to them as a show, and then they would do a major category, then they would do all the minor categories, and we'll be right back after this. It was ridiculous. So from a production standpoint, it was horrible because we were picking up this live feed, and it was there. So right off the bat, that was a mess. And then they got it wrong. I mean, they leaked the information before they even talked about it on the air on their website, and they said that Amy Adams got a nomination for Best Actress for
and that Tom
Arrival.
Hanks got it for Sully, right?
Right, and Tom Hanks got it for Sully. And then I'm on the air with the anchor person and another person, and the other person goes, "Well," I said, "Well, any snubs?" And I go, "Well, yeah, Amy Adams got snubbed for Best Actress," and she goes, "No, she got nominated."
Right, because it was right.
Got nominated.
What's the alternative here? I mean, we go back to the original, these actors and directors stumbling in, half asleep, going through the words and the motions. Isn't that bad TV?
Yes. No, because, if you think about it, most other organizations, the Critics' Choice people, which is the BFCA, which I belong to, I believe you're a member of that.
I'm a member of it too, yes.
The Golden Globes. Nobody has a television show that, a live announcement of their nominations. I think they should just put out a press release at a certain time. If you want to do it a little more dramatically, you could do a live feed and pick it up. That's cool. But this is just a show for Good Morning America on ABC, and it was a bad show at that, with Michael Strahan and a bunch of other people, and it was just a mess. I was very unhappy with that. So, I don't mind. Read a laundry list. That's fine. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Best Picture category, and I want to kind of sort of go through the top categories with you and see what you think works and doesn't work. Let's start with Best Picture. You got Arrival, Fences, Hacksaw Ridge, Hell or High Water, Hidden Figures, La La Land, with 14 nominations today, tying a record, Lion, Manchester by the Sea, and Moonlight. Was there a particular film you wanted to see in here?
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer that. I'm going to answer that two ways. The first way I'm going to answer that is at the end of the year, I do a 10 best list of my favorite movies of the year. Okay, and when it gets down to the Oscars, there's been so many award shows already that have preceded the Oscars. In the old days, there were four shows. There was like the Oscars for movies and the Tonys for Broadway and the Grammys for music and the Emmys for television. Now there's a million award shows. So when you get to the Oscars, it's the last award show. And even though it's the biggest award show, it's anti-climactic, and climactic,
yeah.
Climactic, thank you. So to me, it's not really what I want. To me, it's just basically handicapping a horse race, or like in Vegas or Atlantic City, putting a bet down on something. I mean, not monetarily, but just, it's more like I'm handicapping on what I think is going to win. So I have no real stake in the race. I mean, I was happy to see Hidden Figures get nominated for Best Picture. I didn't think that was going to happen, but people really like the movie. I like the movie, and it's a crowd pleaser, and it's also making a lot of money. It was 2 weeks in a row. I think it was like number one at the box office. So I'm glad to see that. It's also historically very interesting. Do I think that's the best picture of the year? Certainly not. But I was glad to see that it got honored by getting a Best Picture nomination.
Listen, I think there's three movies that I would have liked to have seen in here. Number one, Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation was on my, I thought it was one of the best pictures of the year.
Absolutely.
But I think Birth of a Nation was a very good movie. I think it was one of the best of the years. I think it deserved to be nominated. It told a very interesting historical story about the first, slave rebellion in the United States, led by, the character played by Nate Parker, who he also wrote and directed the film. And because of that controversy, yes, it was completely, snubbed. And, I just feel the movie is the movie. I don't want to get into the
character issues of everybody else.
Right, I mean, if you step into a movie and you don't know any of the backstory about the guy who made the movie, just look at the movie.
Yeah, just look at the movie. Now, moving on over to actor, best actor in a leading role, we got Casey Affleck, Andrew Garfield for Hacksaw Ridge, Ryan Gosling, Viggo Mortensen for Captain Fantastic, and Denzel Washington in Fences. Snub to me, I don't know if you agree, Tom Hanks from Sully?
Some people love that performance. It's not a showy performance. It's a nuanced performance.
It's a measured performance.
I think it was a good performance. I don't know if it was an Academy-worthy nominated performance. I don't think it's like, wow, what an oversight. Do you think out of the 5 nominees in there, is there something that
Ryan
really
Gosling, absolutely. Ryan Gosling, when we talk about the best actor of the year, we're seeing some sort of particular monologue like Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street.
I don't think he sings well. It's a musical.
He doesn't sing well. He doesn't dance well. Look, I think the movie overall is fantastic, but we're isolating Ryan Gosling's acting performance in that movie, and I don't think it's worthy of a best actor nod. Andrew Garfield, you can say yes. Denzel, to me, is by far
Andrew
the
Garfield
best.
got nominated for 2 movies. Let's be honest. You want to talk about the politics of the Oscars. He had a leading role in the movie Silence, the Martin Scorsese film, and he had the leading role in Hacksaw Ridge. And those are 2 outstanding performances, even though I didn't really care for the movie Silence. And, and I even had some problems with Hacksaw Ridge.
Well, Hacksaw Ridge really becomes incredibly engaging in the second half of the film, where he's saving people left and right.
It's completely 2 different movies. For the first half of Hacksaw Ridge, it's like Jethro Bodine.
Yeah, it's like a
from the
love
Beverly
story.
Hillbillies, or Gomer Pyle. Is like
yes, exactly.
the conscientious objector, but he's just a romance and all golly shucks, and I want to give blood again so I can get my girl. He's like he's an idiot.
Yeah.
And then the second part of the movie, that whole first half is almost dismissed entirely, and it's an action movie, which is really overkill, pun intended, on action, where it's nonstop, wall-to-wall action. And yes, he is saving people, but I mean, I was directing the movie, but what do I know? I mean, I would have put the 2 stories together and maybe had him on the battlefield saving people, then flash back to the first part of the story, instead of being inundated with barrage of nonstop action in the second half and kind of like a dopey love story.
Right, and then you got Casey Affleck and Denzel Washington. And to me, this is where the real race is between these 2.
Well, that's a great performance. I think Denzel did a great performance. That whether I think Casey Affleck, and I don't think he's really deserving, although I think he's the odds-on favorite to win Best Actor. I think Denzel was a great performance.
I do, and I think more than that, Neil. I think that this is a war between the nuanced actor and the nuanced performer, and the more of the loud performance here, which was Denzel's. He was in people's faces. He was
great,
yeah,
but you know why they didn't give him
and
to
he was
him?
passionate and fervent.
Well, he got a nomination, but he's not going to win. The reason he's not going to win is because he's won twice before, and as bizarre as that sounds, that's really my feeling on the matter, and that's why I don't think Natalie Portman will win for Jackie because she. And I'm not saying that she's. Well, I thought it was a great performance, but I don't really like the movie.
But let's go through the actress category so we can talk about Natalie Portman. It's Natalie Portman for Jackie, Meryl Streep for Florence Foster Jenkins, Emma Stone,
she's
La La
automatic.
Land.
Meryl Streep is automatic.
It's automatic. Isabel Huppert for Elle, and then Ruth Negga for Loving. Now, to me, the front runner here, without question, is Natalie Portman. I don't know how anybody can argue against that.
And Natalie Portman's the best performance in that category, unquestionably, as far as I'm concerned.
Because Meryl Streep...
Emma Stone's going to get it.
Yeah, Meryl Streep was an autopilot.
There's another one. Meryl Streep's not getting it. And the one who's getting it is Emma Stone, and it's the same rationale and logic that you're using for Ryan Gosling. That they're just going to get all jumping up and down cartwheels over this La La Land, which I think is a decent movie, but it's an overrated movie. And Hollywood loves movies about Hollywood, and this is kind of a tribute to old Hollywood musicals.
I think La La Land is a singular movie this year. There's nothing like it. I do want to talk about Ruth Negga for a second. Look, I just saw this movie over the weekend, and I thought that both Joel Edgerton's and Ruth Negga's performances were very quiet. And we go back to that Casey Affleck nuanced sort of, performance where I don't necessarily, look, you can argue 100 ways and 100 angles how nuanced acting is powerful, but it doesn't beat the sizzle and the raw emotion of someone passionate on film. And for her to be getting this plays politics to me because the Oscars Are So White campaign was so heavy that they felt that they couldn't make this whole category fully white, so they introduced somebody there, unfortunately and regrettably, in Ruth Negga, but you could have picked, maybe someone else like Taraji P. Henson for the lead role from Hidden Figures. It is nominated Best Picture.
I agree. I think Taraji P. Henson was a much better performance than the Ruth Negga performance. I have problems with Loving altogether with the movie itself. I think that, that film, although historically very, very interesting, I didn't feel really the love between these two, the connection, the love between this couple. I think that should have been brought out more on the screen. And maybe I don't think it's really the actor's fault as much as the direction. And then there was the whole country was going through a civil rights transformation, and the way it shows you when they come down with the Supreme Court verdict that they made interracial marriage, legal, the Supreme Court voted that in. the movie implies that it was because of this couple, the Lovings, when they're not showing you all this radical change that was going on in the country at that time in the 60s.
Right.
I mean, the gay rights movement, the civil rights movement, the hippie, anti-Vietnam movement.
That was kind of just waved off.
In an uproar. And it was just kind of like, I don't know. I thought dramatically that movie could have been really shown in a better way. There's actually a documentary called The Loving Story that
plays better,
far superior to the movie in explaining that story.
Well, and then the last category that I want to talk to you about, Neil, is directing. We got Denis Villeneuve in Arrival, Mel Gibson in Hacksaw Ridge, Damien Chazelle in La La Land, Kenneth Lonergan for Manchester by the Sea, and Barry Jenkins, Moonlight. Who do you think is winning here, and who do you think should have been in here that isn't?
Okay, well, I'm going to answer it a different way. I'm going to tell you what I think should win, and I'm going to tell you what will win. I think Moonlight is fascinating from a directorial standpoint. I mean, I think that the director of that movie, Barry Jenkins, right?
Yep, Barry Jenkins.
Okay, Barry Jenkins. You've got 3 stories going on of the same kid who's living in this urban area in Miami, who's struggling with his sexuality. He's gay, and it's very tough to be gay. It's not in that kind of environment to be accepted in that urban environment. You have 3 different actors playing that young man, and I think it's a very innovative thing, and I think it's unlike anything that I've really kind of seen this year.
Well, first of all, in terms of black cinema, no black movie has ever been like this. Done by a
Correct.
Black director with a black... You don't see black films this refined, this sophisticated, and this innovative. It's
sophisticated and innovative and unusual. But what's going to win? Slam dunk, guaranteed. Bet you anything you want. Damien Chazelle wins for La La Land. And look, it's a good directorial job. I mean, he has them, on wires floating through the planetarium in Los Angeles. He has that opening scene where they're all singing out of the cars on the highway in L.A. But Hollywood loves Hollywood, as I'm saying. That's going to win.
To me,
look at how many nominations the movie got.
To me,
they're not going to stuff the movie.
To me, the best director. If you had to just judge on flat out directing,
can I guess what you're going to say? Can I guess what you're going to say? You're going to tell me Arrival.
That's absolutely correct. Denis Villeneuve.
Yes, I knew
look,
you'd say that.
When we look at Avatar and we look at The Hurt Locker.
It's a great directorial with those obelisks floating in the thing with the very well directed.
I mean, this was a movie that not only was visually tremendous and brilliant in the way he set it up. It looked real, authentic. It was also stylish. It had some of this film noir feel to it. And to create those obelisks like you were talking about, I mean, the whole thing looked just like authentically real. It's hard to pull off a movie like that. And so I give it technical credit for performances, for getting the best out of Amy Adams, who did get snubbed, etc. But I think Arrival and Denis Villeneuve should probably win the best directing, but I think you're right. Damien Chazelle probably win it.
Yeah. Well, did you like the talk about snubs? The director of Lion didn't get, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't get nominated, correct?
How do you explain Mel Gibson's getting into this? Do you think he did that great of a job to get in?
I don't know. I don't even think it was that great of a directorial job. I mean, certainly not the first half. I mean, you could if you're giving it to him, it's certainly for the second half of those action sequences, those battle scenes that were filmed, but I don't think forget about the controversy with him. Although, strictly on the movie, I don't think that's the best directorial. I put Lion in there before I put in for directing. Before I put in Hacksaw Ridge for directing.
And last thing, Neil, why aren't you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter, but
no, you're not. Because every time I look for you on my Twitter, I can't find you.
I tweet on the Talking Pictures site, which is Talking Pics OD. That's where I tweet on. I do have a personal Twitter account, but I don't really use it that much. I kind of tweet on Talking Pics OD because I try to promote the show.
Okay, well, but so if somebody wanted to get in touch with you via Twitter, what's your handle? Capital
TALKING, Talking, capital P, small case IX, and capital L, capital D, Talking Pics OD.
Okay, well, there you go. If you want to bash Neil on his criticisms once in a while. Now
if you want to talk to me at I have at Neil Rose, my personal Twitter handle, which I rarely use, is at Neil Rosen Apples. So if you want to do that, you're welcome.
Dun, 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 dun. All right, Neil, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Before you go, you want my predictions in the 6 major categories really quickly in 30 seconds?
30 seconds. Go for it.
Okay. Best picture was La La Land, as I said. Best director is Damien Chazelle. Best actor is going to be Casey Affleck. Best actress is going to be Emma Stone. Best supporting actress is going to be Viola Davis. Best supporting actor is going to be, how do you pronounce his name from Moonlight?
Mahershala Ali.
That's it. Those are my predictions for who's going to win the Academy.
You know what? I can't disagree. I can't disagree with you. I think those are all on the money. All right, Neil, thank you so much, man. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks, Jack. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Trump this week signed 2 executive orders to immediately build the wall on the Mexican border and deport many illegal immigrants, plus cut grants on sanctuary cities like New York. To give us the pros and cons and the financial and social impact that this will have on the U.S., we bring in Laura Meckler, reporter of the Wall Street Journal, who wrote about this very topic this week. Hi, Laura. Thanks for coming on.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
This Trump versus Mexico novella has precipitated rather quickly. This whole week, if you thought that the story was just going to end there, it just keeps evolving like an avalanche. Both presidents now have said that they will not be meeting each other for now. What are you hearing?
That's what's happening. They have both officially canceled the meeting. Now, this was not all that surprising if you look at what was happening on Wednesday, the day that President Trump put out his executive orders, which are, quite hostile to Mexico, building the wall. He again said that Mexico is going to pay for it, something that Mexico says it isn't going to pay for. And there's tremendous pressure on the president of Mexico to cancel the visit, basically saying, his people in his circles are saying, you can't go there, you can't talk to this guy. He's already insulting us. But as of yesterday, he was still just sort of considering his options, had not in fact canceled. And then I think the most amazing thing, when you are in Washington, you sort of wake up every morning looking to see what Donald Trump might have tweeted. And this morning he tweeted and said, if Mexico is if Mexico is unwilling to pay for the badly needed wall, then it would be better to cancel the upcoming meeting.
But
so he was basically daring him to come. He was basically saying, go ahead and make my day, because at that point the Mexican president had no choice but to cancel, because he said straight up, I'm not going to pay for the wall.
But the gall of Donald Trump to have the foreign minister at the White House and say this and tweet this out was just asking for a feud. And now this has to be seen as a legitimate feud. And I want to ask you, will the U.S. be affected negatively by this rivalry?
We'll have to see. I mean, of course, Trump would say the U.S. is going to be affected positively, and he'd point out to a car company that has, moved some jobs back to this country, based essentially on his pressure tactics alone. But Mexico has long been a close ally of the U.S. It's obviously, we share a huge border, a 2,000-mile border with Mexico, and we actually need Mexico's help in terms of dealing with illegal immigration, particularly people who are traveling from Central America through Mexico,
right,
and then showing up on our border. And they're not so much evading border patrol; they're actually turning themselves in and saying, "I want asylum in the U.S." And that's a complicated system that Trump says he's going to try to crack down on. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But what most experts say, the real way to stem this problem is to get Mexico to help them, preventing them from coming in the first place. So that policy gets complicated, but essentially we really do need Mexico's help with a variety of things. So now we have a relationship that's been antagonized on several fronts. You have President Trump saying that we want to renegotiate or pull out of NAFTA. We have him saying that jobs that Mexico was counting on were essentially not going to be staying in that country. He wants to bring them back here. And now this tensions over immigration. So, there's just quite a bit there.
Why is Donald Trump so obsessed with this wall? It's going to cost about $5 to $10 billion. We saw a chart recently that it's highlighted in your article from the Homeland Security that Mexican immigration has declined in the last 16 years from 1.6 million into the 400,000, which means that this is not a top priority.
Right. Well, here's a few things to know. One, it's going to be more than 5 to 10 billion. Today, at their retreat in Philadelphia, House Republican leaders said that they were planning on 10 to 15 billion dollars.
Wow.
I'm sorry, 12 to 15 billion, and that some people say that wouldn't even be enough. Nobody knows how much this thing would actually cost. So that's our starting point. And also, a lot of experts say this is actually not the best way for a variety of reasons to even secure the border. So you've got that piece. Then you have the piece that, yes, illegal immigration has fallen, and you have the part that a lot of the people, almost half of the people who are crossing, are these Central Americans who are not trying to evade the border security at all. They're just literally showing up and turning themselves in. So all of that put together, you might say, this doesn't seem like a great argument for a wall. However, keep in mind that this was a huge part of his campaign. He built his campaign on this idea. He had crowds chanting, build the wall, build the wall. This has become a symbol for the idea that we need secure borders and that we need that foreigners are, posing unfair competition for American jobs, and that he's going to put American workers first. Now, that's the big picture that he's doing, and the wall has come to symbolize that. So he essentially has to pursue and try to go forward with it. Now, the question is, how far does he get? And is it really a wall, or is it a fence? Is it really end-to-end? There were already in the executive order, there were already indications that, some of it could be done with technology. So, we'll have to see what this really looks like at the end of the day.
Bill de Blasio's been on the TV rounds. He did MSNBC yesterday, did CNN this morning, and this is really about the topic of sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. Do you think that part of these executive orders will ultimately affect cities like New York and LA?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, sanctuary city is sort of a general term that doesn't necessarily mean anything in and of itself, but there are a variety of cities that are, to varying degrees, declining to cooperate with federal immigration authorities, and
I don't blame them.
and the mayors are. Well, I mean, it depends. If you had somebody who was released from jail who had been just served a sentence for murder, say, let's just use an extreme example. I don't think a lot of people would say, yeah, we shouldn't deport that person if they were here illegally. So then you got on the other end of this of the spectrum, broken taillight. Does that deserve? Should someone be turned over to deportation authorities for that? A lot of people would say no, but there's a lot of gray area in between those two. Now, of course, Trump's order demands that people be his priorities for deportation are going to include not just people convicted of crimes of, he said, any criminal conviction, but also people charged with crimes who have not already been essentially adjudicated and found not guilty. So essentially, if you've just been charged with a crime, or anybody who an immigration officer views as a public safety risk, which essentially could mean, I guess, just about anybody, depending on who you're talking about, what kind of agent we're talking about. So he has a very broad set of priorities. What will he demand of the cities? What will he actually demand in terms of them turning people over, holding them in jail after they no longer are serving their time locally? I mean, these are the questions we don't really know. And then the question becomes, what can he do to punish them? What he says is he's going to do is withhold federal grant money. Well, the law is complicated as to how much he can actually withhold. It has to be the grant has to be related to the condition that you're putting onto the grant. So personally, I see this whole thing headed to a lawsuit. We're going to have Bill de Blasio and Rahm Emanuel, Eric Garcetti versus Donald Trump, and I don't think there's much else that those mayors would rather do than sue Donald Trump in court over immigration. From their point of view, their political point of view, it's a total win, and I think that Trump will enjoy it as well. So they all just seem to be spoiling for a fight over this question, so we'll see how it resolves.
Laura Meckler, reporter of the Wall Street Journal, great conversation. Thank you very much for the insight. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
For many Latinos who followed the Oscars, there was a glaring omission at this week's Academy nominations. Latinos were nowhere to be seen in acting categories. Why is that? My good friend Tara McNamara, film critic and film contributor to CBS's The Insider, Entertainment Tonight, and NBC's Today Show, is here to help me exactly answer how we change that. Tara, thanks for coming on.
How are you?
The other day, I tweeted out the following. It said, if anyone is outraged at the absence of Latinos at the Oscars, don't be. Latinos didn't make or act in films worthy of this year to be nominated. You responded, do you think there's an institutional racism in that roles were unavailable like Oscar So White year? And I said, you know what? That's a podcast conversation. And here we are talking about this. What do you think it is from your perspective? You live in LA, you cover this a lot. Is this institutional racism?
Yeah, I think to some degree it is. I mean, when you look at, I think that there's so many factors that it's hard to speak about it generally, because you have to get in. So one, Hollywood is no longer making films for just North America, right? Like they're more focused internationally. Now, in the last 10 years, it's become apparent that more money is made overseas than in North America. That wasn't the case before, right? It used to be that the box office receipts were biggest domestically, but that's no longer the case. And so Hollywood has kind of had a wake-up call about it, and I feel like they've been working toward it, but I think they got started too late. And now they're playing catch-up, because it's not that Hollywood isn't aware that this is a problem. They know it's a problem. And so when you start looking at the reasons why, I think it starts from the beginning. They want a star. They feel they have to have a movie star to go and talk about the movie, or you won't know about the movie, and you won't go see it because you're not aware of it. So they need someone with celebrity to go out and go on all the talk shows and get the magazine covers. And so they need someone who's already a star. So they have to start grooming these celebrities, right? They have to start making their own. And I think it kind of starts from that point of view. But I feel like it's also because when you look at, they've done some studies in the last couple of years, and they found that it is, that I think it's like 94% of film executives are white. Without question, the majority of directors are white, mostly white males. I think almost all of the studio heads are white males. Nearly all of them are. And so it becomes that point of view, too, of, when they're getting stories that are there's a lack of awareness of someone else, right? So if you're a white male and you get these scripts about white males, instead of thinking, well, this is another script about a white male, then there's maybe nothing registering in their brain of, hey, maybe we should, get more Asians, or maybe there's not a single Hispanic in this script, and perhaps they're just not looking at that. But what do you think?
Hispanic movies in the United States are still considered foreign, like Latin American films, Spanish language films done by Argentinians, Mexicans, and everything. And there's a dire situation that we're going through. There's not enough roles for Hispanics. There's not enough characters about Hispanics. There's not enough stories about Hispanics. And then when you do one, it doesn't do well at the box office, because I think that most people think that Hispanics don't go watch Hispanic films. What are your opinions of some of the options or some of the things that need to be done in Hollywood?
Well, I think that the problem, I will tell you how we resolve this problem. I mean, it's pretty simple, which is, it starts with outrage, right? And I think the reason that we have so many films with African-American characters this year that were nominated for the Oscars is because, part of it is that we had such a backlash that people greenlit more movies. And, when you have people like Brad Pitt or Pharrell who are, who are talking to the studios and saying, let's make this movie, that can be something, that can push it over the edge. I feel like Moonlight is a movie that it feels like a miracle that it got made. This, like the idea of, it doesn't look like a profitable film. You know what I mean? From the artsiness to the story, it just isn't like doesn't scream blockbuster. And I would think a studio would look at it and go, yeah, I don't see this making money. But you have Brad Pitt championing it. Now they're listening, and now they know they have a black problem, right? And that they've been kind of called out and for not having enough people of color. So they're like, okay, let's greenlight this. Let's see where it goes. And of course, it's a smashing success. So it starts with outrage, and then the second area in making them know that that it's a problem. And then second of all, when those films are released, people in those groups need to go see the movie. We have to make them a success. So, like, you know,
good luck with that, Tara.
Well, I was going to say, you know, Book of Life, right? I mean, Book of Life. Here, we wrote an article together a couple of years ago when Book of Life came out that there were so few family films that had Latino characters in it and had that kind of point of view or perspective. But, you know, Book of Life comes out, and here it kind of checks all the boxes, right?
It basically made $100 million. It made $99.8 million, and the director's still trying to find his next project.
You've got to support the film. George Lopez and Spare Parts. That is a good, solid family film, and nobody went to see it. And maybe it's that it didn't get the push, maybe it didn't get the celebrity, but my point is that if you care about seeing more, you know, if we care about seeing different races on the screen, if we want to see more brown people or more black people or more, you know, Asians or Indians, then we need to, and Native Americans, we need to show up, right, when these films are released.
I totally agree with you. It's a very good point about the outrage factor that really galvanizes a movement or a conversation nationally. It's just that I don't think we have the actors that are loud enough. And let me tell you where that comes from. And it's just my opinion. I think most actors or Latino actors that are born in Latin America, when they come here, they feel like a fish out of water. They feel like they don't have a voice. They feel like they're lucky and fortunate that they're even going to auditions, that they're being considered for a role. That to them is a sense of triumph and achievement. Then you have U.S. Hispanics that are here. And mostly, U.S. Hispanic actors have very secondary roles. Like Jay Hernandez is a guy that could have been much more. I feel like Michael Pena is one of our best actors, U.S. Hispanic actors.
He was in Ant-Man.
He was in Ant-Man. I mean, this is a guy that should be having lead roles. And I think Hispanics just want to be a part of the blockbusters. They want to be a co-star, like Gina Rodriguez in Deepwater Horizon, even though she got a very small part. It's just so difficult. And that's why, folks, we don't see Latinos at the Oscars, except maybe in a technical field. But acting, it's going to be probably a generation before we see that.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because, I mean, I think when we're having this conversation, it's not just Latino. It's, you know, it's
a multicultural issue.
I think that, like, as far as I feel that as populations go, we go see films based on story and not because of the ethnicity. You know, for instance, like in Deadpool, which I had really hoped was, I mean, I knew it was probably not, because they just don't go for these kind of comedies or raunchy comedies. Yeah. The Academy is just not about that. But I was like, oh, come on.
It's a raunchy art comedy. Right? It would have been too much of a stretch.
But, and so, of course, Ryan Reynolds, as white of a guy as it gets, is the one we're all talking about. But, you know, his lead co-star, and I don't want to try and say her name because it's Brazilian and I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm going to let you say her name.
Wait, who are we talking about?
Morena Baccarin? See, I said it wrong.
What movie are we talking about? Which film are we talking about?
I was hoping you were going to jump in there and just say it, because I'm as white as it gets, you know? Like, okay. But, you know, the point is she did, you know, she was great in that film. And she's Brazilian descent. And I think part of it is that sometimes we don't see people. I don't think we see people through their ethnicity. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people, Selena Gomez and Vanessa Hudgens, you know, Vin Diesel, he identifies as The Rock. Yeah. I mean, these are people whose makeup is such a combination. You know, we don't know what they are. We don't care
because
what
it's
they
so
are.
complicated, it's better if we don't even talk or bring up the conversation, because I think a lot of people will feel like idiots if they bring it up. So absolutely. I mean, it happens with me. I'm a guy that walks on the Today Show, and I'm supposed to be, quote unquote, getting Latino stories on the Today Show. That's what I'm supposed to be talking about. But I don't talk about Latino stories, and no one ever mentions anything Hispanic or Latino to me, because I think I fall into that bracket of this multicultural, ambiguous guy. We know you're multicultural, but we have no clue where you're from. You kind of really throw us off. So I think like the Jennifer Lopez's of the world really do a good job in doing that. But what's the next generation? I think my follow-up question to you, Tara, is I understand that Outrageous was going to get the conversation going, but why not? Why not have Hollywood groom the next generation of actors? And why don't Latinos fit into that? Wouldn't it be easy to take Diego Luna now that he did Star Wars Rogue One, and convert him into a big, huge superstar?
Yes, and I think that the Star Wars, as opposed to the Marvel franchise or the Disney princesses, I think Star Wars does have a few actors of, I think they are trying to be more diverse. And I think, and part of that is their story, right? Of that these are interplanetary characters. So they are more conscious and aware of putting people of different ethnicities and color on the screen, because they're trying to show, they're also putting someone who's like purple, and has three eyes.
That's a good point. Yeah, like right? Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. So they're more aware of that. It's so bizarre when we're going out to the universe. Now let's stick some Hispanics in there. Now let's put some Asians in. But what we really have to do is, you're right. I think it's got to start with grooming young actors of color, and again, this is how it works. Somebody doesn't usually get cast as a lead as the boy did in the Jungle Book, right? So this kid has a real opportunity to grow up and become this big leading star and be of Indian American descent. But most of the time they start in under 5 roles and then go to supporting roles and work their way up to lead actor. And so we have to, support them, right? So if you're Taylor Lautner, who is of Native American descent, right? Then he gets this, he's on Tiger Beat and people love him. Mm-hmm. He has a real opportunity. Now here is an actor who has a following, who has stardom, who you can cast as a lead actor and will go on these shows and talk about your film. And so that's what we have to do. But he started in smaller roles and commercials and worked his way up. I mean, as a child, and that's a whole other conversation about starting as a child. But that is the way that we have to do it. And when you see someone, you have to support them. But it's just sort of interesting. Like now we always go to Black, and we kind of skip other ethnicities. And especially Latino. That is becoming ethnicity in America. That is now about to overtake the population. If it hasn't already, you tell me.
Here's the people that I think have a really good chance of breaking through the wall of what Hollywood has put with Latinos. Edgar Ramirez, I think, has a really good shot at becoming an A-list actor. Gina Rodriguez has a lot of potential to become a great female actor, maybe the next Jennifer Lopez, leading Latina actress. Lin-Manuel Miranda, I think he's one of the few guys that can make the jump from stage to film and be supported by the Hollywood crowd that watched Hamilton and make him into a star. So those are the key 3 people that I think have a lot of potential if supported, if groomed by the studios, to finally crack down on this whole issue of Latinos not having a place in Hollywood. Like you said, we need the support. So let's see. Tara McNamara, film critic on The Insider, Today Show, Entertainment Tonight. Thanks a lot for being on the podcast, girl.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's it for this 18th episode of the Highly Relevant Podcast. I want to thank Neil Rosen, Laura Meckler, and Tara McNamara for joining me on the show. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any feedback, reach me on Twitter at JackRicoOfficial. Also, please subscribe and leave a review. We're now on Spotify, Google Play, and Stitcher for you Android users. See you again next Friday on another episode of Highly Relevant.